And we are live, everybody. Hello out there. This is the second panel of VomCon, our celebratory 25th anniversary digital comic book convention, taking place all day, noon to 6, on Discord, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. You name it, we're there. And we are here with a group of incredibly talented industry professionals from many different facets of the comics and art industry, here to chat about their life in comics. I am Caleb. I am just sort of moderating this event. I am deferring all of the actual expertise and artistic content to those more talented. Working our way down the line, we've got Joel Bartlett. Joel, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joel Bartlett. I'm 32 and currently work as a full-time flatter and part-time colorist. Been doing it for just over a year now, actually. Started full-time in the middle of the pandemic, so that's been fun.
That's got to be fun.
Yeah.
It's weird to gauge time off of that, because it feels like it wasn't really a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Kenny Porter. Kenny, you want to say hi?
Hey everybody, I'm Kenny. I'm a comic book writer. I've done stuff for Scholastic most recently, DC Comics, a bunch of other stuff, and I'm happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of Vault of Midnight. It's my favorite shop, so glad to support it.
Well, we're huge fans ourselves. Thanks for spending some time with us. Working down the line, we also have Aaron Polk here. Aaron, you want to say hi?
Hi there. My name is Aaron Polk. I'm a professional comic book artist, which means that all day, every day, I just get to make comics, and it is the best, as basically everybody else here. I primarily work in coloring. I have gotten to work on some amazing books, including the Dogman books by Dave Pilkey. I also worked on a book a couple years ago called Hawking, about Stephen Hawking, with local comic book writer Jim Ottaviani. I've done a bunch of work for Scholastic as well as First Second, and I am helping out running VomCon today. I'm doing all the Discord stuff, and it has been
Which
great.
I'm very thankful for. Thank you, Aaron.
And I'm very excited to actually get to talk about comics and not just hide behind a computer screen.
And ask people to draw the first Google search they had today. Though the drawing jams are fun. If you haven't checked them out, you should all check out our monthly drawing jams. Aaron is a big facilitator of those as well. Moving on, we have got David F. Walker. Hello, would you like to say hi?
Hey, how's everybody doing? Let's see. Well, my name is David F. Walker, and I write comics. I've written for Marvel, DC, Image, currently the co-writer of Bitterroot at Image with Chuck Brown. Sanford Green's the artist. Co-creator, co-writer of Naomi at DC with Brian Bendis, and Jamal Campbell's the artist, and we're working on season 2 of that as we speak. And and it's Saturday, and I didn't sleep well, and it's really hot, and I haven't had caffeine yet today, so I'm completely I don't know what I can talk about for sure. I'm going through all my non-disclosure agreements right now. So if there's a long pause before I say anything, that's
you're running through mountains of paperwork. Yeah, we totally get that. Well, thank you for tiptoeing around what you're allowed to talk about with us today. And then we've got Steve. Steve, would you like to say hi?
Yeah, hey, I'm Steve Wygmans. I'm a writer and creator, and I'm the writer of a self-published comic called The Adventures of Momo, which Vault of Midnight has been awesome and been carrying on their shelves. And this is something I've been working on with my brother. He's the illustrator. He couldn't be here today, but I'm here, and we're going to have a good time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us. We've got a I think pretty broad array of expertise in the room, and I am very excited. I think we should get rolling. First of all, Isaac Bergman says hi from the YouTube chat. Hello, Isaac. Thanks for
What up, Isaac?
Anybody watching, if you guys do have any questions for any of our artists here, feel free to throw them down into the comments. This is very much an open thing. If it's appropriate and we've got time for it, we'll definitely throw some questions in that you guys give us. And we've got our first cat of the stream.
Yeah, sorry, that's Alfredo.
Alfredo, what's your comic expertise like?
Cat.
None.
Got second cat over with Joel. Oh yeah, your name
ruining pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, our first question that I'm going to pose to the group is whether or not you guys have a specific first memory of how comics entered your life, whether they've always been present or if there was something that like flipped a light switch for you when you went, oh, this is the thing for me. And we can just start going down the line. Joel, you have an answer?
Yeah, well, my very first memory of comics is actually this book here, which I still
look
have
at that.
from when I was about, I don't know, had to been like 5, 6. I was
Looks
young.
like it.
Yeah, no, it's got no cover. But it started with Calvin and Hobbes, and it was just a lot of newspaper comics for a while until Toonami, the early runs with Tenchi and Gundam and all that stuff. I became a giant anime nerd as a teen. And then one day I picked up Runaways hardcover volume 1, and that kind of swerved it into American comics, and from there it's just been, well, mostly as much as I could read for can handle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Calvin and Hobbes is a pretty respectable place to start. I think it's probably where a lot of folks out there first dip their toes into comics.
You don't get much better than Bill Watterson, like for art, for story writing, for humor.
We've got Isaac over in the YouTube chat saying Calvin and Hobbes was there first as well. So you are in good company.
I assume so.
Kenny, what about you?
Yeah, so the first comic book I remember actually seeing was my dad had a bunch of those old Gold Key Star Trek comics, like reprints of stories. So those were the first ones I remember flipping through. But I loved the X-Men and Batman and stuff as a kid. I lived down the road from a comic shop, like a couple blocks away. So as a kid, I'd load up my little neon shorts and they'd jingle with coins as I ran down to try to go and buy anything in the bargain bins. The first comic book I bought myself, I think, was X-Men. I can never remember the number. It's like 238 or 297 or something. It's the one where Colossus and Juggernaut fight in the bar and there's no costumes or anything. So it's a weird first X-Men comic because it's just like people going out for a beer and trying to relax than getting in a bar brawl. But yeah, since then, comics have always been a part of my life. And like read them all as a kid and then came back to them in college. And that's when I wanted to write my own. So always running down the road with my pocket full of change, trying to buy all the stuff in the bargain bins.
Yeah. And I think we can all relate to using any and all money we've got to pick up the good book that week. Aaron, what about you?
The first comic that I actually remember reading and like retaining, right, as something meaningful was actually my mom's copy of The Adventures of Tintin. That was a comic that she grew up on, and she had a bunch of copies from when she was in college, and she gave them to me as a kid. I actually like struggled a lot with reading when I was younger because I have a lot of struggles with dyslexia. And my mom gave me a big stack of comics and it was like, here, let's try this. And that was like the only way that she could get me to read, because it was so much easier for me to associate these pictures with their words and like actually retain the information and understand what was going on. So The Adventures of Tintin was a big one. Calvin and Hobbes, of course, absolute classic. And from there, it was just like a snowball effect. Like the floodgates had been opened, and I just would like gobble up anything that was handed to me.
So for you, it's been comics since you could read, basically.
Yeah. It's like the reason that I can read.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
We've got Isaac over in the comments saying that Bone was a big one for them getting started. Bone, I think we can all agree, is a classic. Brandon Shimzak said Calvin and Hobbes and Runaways specifically, both for them as well. So yeah, we've definitely got some winners here. And Kenny, I wanted to say, not only was it comic books at a young age for you, but it was Star Trek comic books. That is some nerd lineage you got.
That was the first ones I saw. Yeah, those were my dad's. They were in a bottom drawer. He had his old beat up Gold Key comics.
David, what about you?
Oh man, well, I'm about to date myself. I'm old enough to be some of your grandfathers, some of you guys. So when I was a kid growing up, there was two shows on in syndication that I absolutely loved, and one was the live action Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward, and then the other was a animated Spider-Man show that was both of those were from like 66, 67. And so I was enthralled with those as a kid, and my mom just, bought me my first comic. It was an issue of Batman. I didn't even know how to read yet at that point, is, similar to Aaron. And so I actually learned how to read with comics as well.
Yeah.
And I was a nerd kid. Star Trek was also on in syndication at that time, so I would watch that. And this was back when you bought comic books at the newsstand or the grocery store or whatever, and they were 25 cents each. So it was easy to get like a pretty massive collection, and me and my cousins would just get stuff and swap everything. And in those days, it was kind of like you read whatever you got your hands on, and we didn't realize we were collecting things. So you'd get Marvel Team Up number 24, and then you'd want number 25, but you wouldn't see it again in the store till like number 32. So it was nuts. And that was it. But also, and this is interesting too, was because everyone else has mentioned this, was also the daily comic strips. Although, again, like I remember when Calvin and Hobbes started. So for me, it was Peanuts for sure. Charles Schultz remains like just absolutely brilliant. And then from Peanuts, it went to in the early 80s, Bloom County, and then Calvin and Hobbes. But those three strips especially, I studied those, and that's how I learned pacing and timing more than anything else, was with daily comic strips.
Yeah, because you've only got so much space to tell your story for a full week.
Yeah,
so definitely have to make use of it. And Steve, what about you?
Yeah, so I guess like my first taste of comics, really, I remember my grandma would get us just like whatever was in the back room at like Cascade Library. She would just, here you go. And so you just read whatever she gave you, and like the funnies and stuff like that. But I would say what really like got me into it, I remember because I was really into anime and whatever was on, which wasn't much. And I remember going to Schuler Books, and they had just started to get manga, and they had like Akira and Samurai X and Ranma and Dragon Ball Z, all this stuff that and that was before they put wrappers on stuff that kids shouldn't read. So I would like sneak away and look at like Akira, and I'm like, this is stuff I should not be looking at. But it was also at the same time like, man, this is like a level of storytelling that I've never seen before. And it just really enthralled me. So anytime that we would go to that store, I would be like, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I would sneak away and look at like Rurouni Kenshin and Tenchi Muyo and all kinds of stuff, just whatever I could read in the time frame that my dad questioned why I was in the bathroom so long.
Yeah, that's pretty great. We definitely still have the occasional manga that we don't realize should be definitely wrapped up and sealed. But somebody goes, hey, real quick, did you guys know? And we go, oop, no, we did not. Let's take care of that. For me personally, it was an old not Calvin and Hobbes. It was an old Dennis the Menace comic, but it wasn't the blonde-haired Dennis. It was a black-haired Dennis with a black and red striped shirt from
the British one.
Comics. Yes, the British one, absolutely. I didn't know. It was just whatever I could get my hands on. I'm the youngest of three, so it was my brothers and then mine. And it just
so by the time you got comics, they were like basically torn to shreds.
Yes, I didn't
tissue paper.
Collect comics. I got reader issues the first time I touched it. I also grew up in a very sports heavy family, so I was actually one of the only ones interested in comics. That was a fun one for me that I didn't really know what it was until years later, and I was like, wait, that's not Dennis the Menace. What was I reading? And then I had to do some research and figure it out. From there, I think it was a Simpsons comic because I knew that from TV, and it was an easy road for me. But that's a nice little, I think, array of a nice broad scope of different books. And with that, so you've read the book, you've got the bug, you know that you're passionate about this. Did anybody have a big first like gig that broke you into the comics industry that like did it for you, or was it more of a slow grind of putting in the work and eventually getting up there? I think this time to spice things up, we'll go in reverse order. Let's get Steve started.
Yeah. So I guess my story is a little interesting because I am technically and currently still a filmmaker by trade. So
Okay.
I went kind of that route with my storytelling, like love, you know, cartoons and comics and stuff. So really, I guess technically my first big gig is the one I'm working on right now, The Adventures of Momo with my brother. That was something my brother has done comics before. He's got a much richer background and as far as working in comics, but there was this story he was kind of thinking of, and he's much more into like lore and things like that. And you know, I'm more of a writer, so he came to me just as like, hey, I've got this idea, and he's like, here's the pieces, but I really don't know how to like bust out the first issue. And he was really just looking for advice. And after I gave him some advice, he was like, oh, well, you should probably just write it. I'm like, yeah, that'd be dope.
Just do it then.
Yeah, right. So really, that's kind of my first big gig. And we've been cranking out issues since then.
That's my turn, right? Oh.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, I was just going to say
Sure.
that must be interesting doing self-made and sort of having full creative control over something like that for your first real big gig. That's got to be exciting.
It is fun.
All right, David, now you can talk.
Well, I will say that self-made self-published is the best thing you can do. Like there's nothing better. I've done a lot of stuff. I had started out, I wanted to be an artist when I was like kid all through high school. I actually went to the Kubert School right after high school.
Oh, okay.
But I got kicked out and for fighting, and then
bad boy of the comics industry. David
I was, and so I went from there to School of Visual Arts, where I got put on academic probation and kicked out. And
for fighting?
No, I wasn't fighting at that point. That was more just me being a screw up. But it was, like I wasn't that good of an artist. I kind of deluded myself. It was pretty easy to get into art school, but it wasn't easy to keep hanging with them.
Okay.
And but I also wrote as well. And so I shifted gears and started writing, and I dropped out of school, but I never gave up my love of comics. And I subsequently, because of the time I spent at art school, I knew people who broke into the industry. And I knew people who worked at Dark Horse from when Dark Horse was first founded. And so I was always I was that guy that you would see at comic conventions and events. And like, I knew everybody knew me, but I just wasn't working in the industry. And I was making my own little comics, and I actually had a career in journalism for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
And I just wasn't that happy doing it. Right. And I still had this love of comics, and I also happened to have a core group of friends who were all professionals, and I'd met them all right as they were really starting to make names for themselves in the industry. Yeah. And I don't like to name drop, but it was Greg Rucka, and it was Brian Bendis, and it was Jen Van Meter, and it was like some of the, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick. It was all people who've gone on to become huge in the industry.
And some that you're still working with to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it was like, everybody was like, well, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, I'm tired of being a journalist. And I was like, I really want to work in comics. And everyone was shocked because they thought like I was just a nerd who liked comics, but didn't really, know that much about the industry.
Didn't think it was a passion.
Yeah. And they were like, then do it. And at that point, I realized, like, if I didn't try, I would be like in my 40s or 50s or 60s. I'd be regretting it. And if you've never met a person who gave up on their dreams, like they're the saddest, most pathetic people on the planet, and you don't want to be around them.
Yeah.
I've got a couple uncles like that, so I decided to knuckle under, and that was like, realistically, we're talking. I made the decision I was going to do this like around 2004, and then I got my first paid gig around 2006, but I didn't start making a living in comics, meaning I was able to quit everything else until 2013 maybe.
Wow. Okay.
And now I'm back to like looking for a side hustle, so it's like it's a roller coaster ride of an industry for sure. And that's like, so when Steve's talking about self-publishing and doing your own thing, it's like, if that's not something that you want to do, if all you want to do is work at Marvel or DC or something like that, good luck. You know, it's because it's also not as fun as you might think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for the advice. I definitely like self-publishing. Never worked for any other comic company, but I can say already I don't want to.
You've got a great track record so far.
Yeah, right.
David Britt over on YouTube would like to know a little more about getting kicked out from the Kubert School. Was that fist fights, or were you just a little bit contrarian?
You're gonna have to wait. There's a graphic novel I'm writing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
okay.
There was.
Are you taking pre-orders?
It's gonna be a while, but yeah, there's it was. I'm trying to. There weren't any actual fist fights at Kubert, because
just causing tussles.
Yeah, nobody actually wanted to throw hands with me. I think if the opportunity had happened,
but it wasn't for lack of trying.
I definitely was. I was pushing it. I was, and it's really like, and the funny thing is that it's not funny, but I just had lunch 2 weeks ago with one of my best friends from the Kubert School. He was passing through town, and we were sort of talking about that time. And I've been dealing with like, the things that I did that got me into so much trouble. And he was just like, man, you were just a kid, and I'm like, I know. But it's just interesting to look back on it, because I think that was a pivotal time in my life. And as a writer and as a creator, it's like, I'm just now coming to grips with it and realizing that, man, this is a good story. The problem is I'm the bad guy. There's no getting around it. When you see those movies or TV shows about the bully that everyone wants to see
that was their
comeuppance? Yeah, that was me. So,
well, I'm excited to read the story from the bully's perspective.
It'll be interesting.
I've always wanted a book where I root for the main character to fail. That sounds exciting. Aaron, what about you?
So my history with comics is like pretty long, because like as I said, my mom got me into it when I was pretty young. So it's been something that's always been a part of my life. My mom is an artist as well, so she was like super encouraging of me always doing art and like being active in it. And I grew up homeschooled, so I was able to do a lot of like extracurricular stuff and like really get involved in my artwork. And my mom actually found me a class on cartooning, which was like super rare. Like that is still like to this day, like you don't really find those. It's super specialized. And I took that class and I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was everything that I wanted. I wanted to be able to do sequential storytelling. And not only was it about like, I enjoy doing artwork and I enjoy, creating these stories, but it was also this experience of like community that was like super important to me, especially like in high school, we're all like super insecure and like very uncomfortable with ourselves. But like I was thrown into this environment of like,
or like David beating up on nerds for their lunch money.
Yeah, exactly. I was the nerd that was constantly getting beat up for my lunch money. But like I suddenly found myself in this community of people who were all very like-minded. It was all of these people who wanted to create comics, not because they wanted to work for the big two. Like they didn't want to make superhero comics. It was they wanted to make art, and they wanted to use comics as a vessel to tell their stories and to show their interpretation of the world. And it was just this amazing space of people who all felt the same way about comics. And it's not just like, I enjoy reading them, but it was also, I enjoy being around other people who feel passionately about this thing that can be used for education or for storytelling or for, you know, all of these incredible other things other than just it is for superheroes and strong dudes.
Yeah.
And that was something really important to me. I continued taking this comics creation class for a long time, and it was taught by Jersey Drozd, who is he was based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where the headquarters of Vault of Midnight is. And he took me on to be his apprentice, and I was able to get an apprenticeship in cartooning, which was so amazing. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. And I had this like super up close and personal education in what it takes to do the work, because he was actively working in comics, and it wasn't in floppies. It wasn't in kind of that area of comics. It was much more in the periphery, self-publishing stuff. It's in graphic novels. It was a bit more in the education area. And the first published work that you could say that I had, it was a work that I did for him. He was doing the artwork on this, and he commissioned me to do the flatting for him. It was on the Warren Commission report with Ernie Colon, who was like this amazing cartoonist. Yeah, who does this. His art style was so detailed and sketched out, and he was so great at drawing people. He had done a commission report on 9/11, and that was huge. And he was just this amazing dude to work for. And my relationship with comics at that point started to change a bit. As I was getting older, I was at that point about 18. I was leaving high school and looking towards this future of like pressure from kind of society of like, art is not a career. Like, you make art because you like it, and it is a thing that you can do on the side, but that's not a real job, right? As I'm sure we all have kind of faced at one point or another.
Still facing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I still get it. And like this has been my full-time job for a number of years. But there were these two facets of pressure that I had at that point, which was, one, go to college, like go get an education, do this thing. Like there was a lot of pressure in my family to do like STEM stuff and like do medical school and this kind of thing. And I wanted nothing to do with that. I wanted to make comics. I knew like I had found this thing that was so important to me, and like I loved doing it so much. So I faced this decision between going to school and like getting a formal education and trying to continue to do comics on the side, or continue down the route of this like more trade school approach in comics, which I opted to do because it was something that I was a lot more passionate about. I had an amazing teacher, and also I had I didn't want to get into an incredible amount of student debt, oddly enough. So I opted to get away from that. But I also, at that time, I had this conflict in comics of like extreme hesitation, because something that is important to the work that I do personally and like the comics that I make is I am a trans person. And at that time, I was presenting female. And the comics industry in the early 2010s was super, super hostile towards women. And I was surrounded by this community that I loved, that loved me, that encouraged me to make stories that I wanted to make, but also was like still being overshadowed by like the environment of the big two. And at that point, like Image was very much climbing up there. So it wasn't just DC and Marvel, but the idea kind of was, if you don't work for one of these big publishers making your monthly floppies, then are you a real cartoonist, right?
Yeah.
And I turned that into like what I wanted. I forced my bubble of comics to be what I needed, because I had grown up with someone who was super encouraging of me to do this thing that I really wanted and to make it my own and to tell my own individual stories. And I decided to turn that around by continuing to get my own work and doing the kind of comics that I wanted to make, but also I took on teaching. And so now, in addition to making comics, I also teach classes for young people on making comics. And I try to use that as an avenue of like encouragement. Like, this is a real job. This is something that you can actually do. This is like a point, like this is not something that is just restricted to older white men who really like superheroes. Like, this is something that is open to everyone, and we should all be able to love this and be a part of this, no matter what kind of stories you want to tell. And it has taken me some really awesome places. I've gotten to work with some really, really cool people and worked with some awesome publishers, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now, I have now reached a point in my life that's like, comics is, especially with, unfortunately, COVID being around, it's been like a lot more difficult for everyone in the art industry to find stable work. So I've had to make ends meet by taking on additional work, but like that does not make me any less of a cartoonist, which is something that I personally have struggled with. Is like, if I have to give up comics a little bit and start doing other work, am I less of a cartoonist?
Not
Just
at
like
all.
David said, currently looking for more side hustles.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
part of that roller coaster.
And I have, like, it has been such an awakening for me in the past year to kind of take my own medicine and like take the teachings that I give to my kids on myself. Because one of the things that I always tell my students is like, the thing that makes a cartoonist is making comics. So just work, like just make something. And like, you can call yourself a cartoonist and make all these comics, but if you don't put them out there into the world for people to see, then what was the point? Just make stuff and put it out there and let people enjoy it and let people be a part of it. And there you are. Like, we've done
just
it.
Like,
we've made it.
Over in the YouTube comments, we had Isaac say during one of, I think, Steve's answer, it really does just come down to make it, write it, draw it, just do it, do the work, put it out there, and give it to the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's hard to do. And sometimes like it is grueling, and like when you do the thing that you love as your job, it, like, people say all the time, right? If you do something that you love, like, you'll never work a day in your life. That is not true at all. That is bull. Because like, yes, I love it, but it is work. It is a lot of work. And like, there are so many days that I just like do not want to be working. But I have to eat. But I still like, even though I am now doing other stuff on the side, like, that does not make me any less of a cartoonist. And it does make me still like, I especially getting to do events like this, I am reminded why I love this and why I do this.
Yeah. Well, and we're lucky to have you and your love and your passion.
Yes,
I got to interject real quick. Like, Aaron, if you ever need an extra parent, I will adopt you. You are like the kid I've always wanted. I don't know how old you are, so I don't say that in a disparaging way. But like, everything you have said is, because I teach part-time, everything you said is stuff that I say to my students all the time. And I always get this pushback and this, you know, and I say that, like, if you want to make comics, you make comics.
Yeah.
No one can give you permission, and getting published at Marvel or DC does not make you any more or less of a comic creator. And so, you know, I'll talk to you about it later, but like everything, like I'm sitting here going, okay, this is the reason I was on this panel today. Like this is it. I found another kindred spirit. So, and I wouldn't I wouldn't have bullied you when I was younger. I would have not at all.
I don't know. I was a dork.
For the record.
So was I. So I was the like the evil dork, like in that episode of Star Trek where Spock has the beard.
Just with the goatee. Yeah.
That was me.
But I do have to say, like, I have the utmost respect for artists like Steve who are able to do like the self-publishing thing, because that is just so incredibly difficult. And like, even though like most of my work right now is coloring, like I'm not doing all of the work that goes into making this graphic novel. And then like I see other people like Steve over here who are doing it from the ground up, and I'm just like, do you sleep? Do you eat? Like,
well,
how are you able to do this?
To be fair, I am just one half of the comic. I write it, and my brother is the illustrator. But you know, we find time in our spare time at night, going to Bitter End Coffee Shop at like 2 a.m. to go over, you know, thumbnails and boards and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's like what you said, like if you want to make it, you just got to do it. And, you know, I did that with my video production company. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't I do that any different for comics, you know?
Well, let's just throw it out here. I think we can officially open the door to collabs for all of our panelists today. Let's get those DMs flying after the stream. But that being said, Kenny, what about you? Do you have any interesting break-in story?
My first big break-in moment was in 2012. Top Cow did their first like talent hunt and search. So I'd been doing my own independent comics, like writing one-shots and shorts, trying to get used to the medium, and then entered the talent hunt, and I won first place on the first one. So I got to do a sort of like Witchblade universe tie-in story, which was super fun. Cool. And I got to know what it was like to work with an editor and work on characters someone else had created, and what that was like to work within a universe of characters. And then from there, I just kept making creator-owned stuff. Some of the best advice I got when I was starting out was from Jason Aaron, who's one of my favorite writers, where he just told me, like, don't wait for people to call you. Like, just because you get one thing out there doesn't mean that, like, you're in now. Like, you should go out and make stuff. So I just kept making creator-owned stuff after that. Like, I did Barnstormers, which was a big action adventure comic that I did through Kickstarter, and that was probably like the most people got to see in my work, which was something I was passionate about. And you know, like everyone said, like, you know, you shouldn't wait for someone to give you permission to make comics. And if you want to write for Marvel or DC, like that's a cool goal, but it shouldn't be the only goal. Like the goal should always be to just make cool stories. You should want to tell stories in comics. So yeah, doing the creator-owned stuff I've always loved, and I'll always continue to do no matter what. But the issue of Artifacts, the Witchblade time thing, was my first big thing. And then I did Barnstormers, which was the Kickstarter thing, which just got picked up and is going to get re-released through Simon & Schuster in September. Nice. So a book I did way back then, like, resonated with enough people that somebody else wanted to put it out. And from there, I just kept on doing stuff until, you know, the more I did my own creator-owned stuff, the more other people saw it. And another thing that David and Aaron touched on a little bit is just that kind of like community of other creators. Like, I don't know, I'd still be doing this if I didn't have friends who are other artists and writers and stuff who I was there to like share my love of it with, or to look over stuff with me, or to just, you know, to get a second set of eyes on things, or to constantly push us all to get better. Like I always want to get better. So I'm completely willing to give my stuff to my friends who are way higher up in the industry than me, to tear it apart like a masochist to make sure that I'm still doing stuff great. I'm like one of the few writers who, like, I don't care if I get notes or people like give me, I will not fight to keep stuff in. If somebody tells me it doesn't work, I will cut it out. Like, I'm good with that. I'm a masochist when it comes to that. But yeah, I think that community and sense of friendship and stuff is something that A, I love about comics, and B, it's probably what's kept me in. Because another thing similar to what Aaron said, like there were years where due to delays or things getting picked up and then dropped off, like I didn't have anything come out. And in comics, like sometimes that can feel like you go a year without something coming out, and it can feel like an eternity. So I think a lot of that has to, like, that community and stuff, and just knowing that you don't always have to constantly be putting stuff out to be a comic creator, a cartoonist, or a writer. Like, you should just worry about making the best things that you can make and putting them out to share with the world. So, I just wanted to say that really resonated with me. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that I'm sorry, I got to interject again.
No, please.
That idea of just because you're not in the eye of the public at a particular time, that kills more careers, and I can tell you, watching the path the industry has taken, it's going to kill even more careers. You don't have to have something out every single month. This isn't a popularity contest. This isn't like, it's. I just talked to an artist yesterday who was looking for advice, and my advice was like, you've got two choices: shut up and go do what you got to do, or just quit. Like, you can't. That attitude. And I've learned that from, I don't know what you guys are doing once you're off camera, right? It's like, just like people don't know what I'm doing when I don't have a comic coming out every month. It doesn't mean that I'm not working. It doesn't mean that I'm not actually about to drop the best stuff of my career. And I've watched so many people give into that fear and actually blow really good opportunities because, this project's going to keep me out of the loop for 7 months, and I don't want to be out of the public eye for 7 months. So you'll be out of the public. The public eye is like 12 people who buy comics.
And to be clear, you're not saying that being out of the public eye is the career killer, but rather the feeling you get and the fear of that is what causes people to kill their own careers.
Yeah. You have to learn how to recognize opportunities, and most times opportunities do not present themselves the way we want them to.
On a silver platter with a bow. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't knock on your door; they plug your toilet. And if you want to grab a hold of that opportunity, you gotta stick your hand in that bowl and
gotta get your hands dirty.
No gloves.
Very visceral metaphor you've used, David.
I'll let Joel top that. There you go.
Joel, how you gonna follow the stuffed toilet metaphor?
I'm not sure that I can, to be honest. That's like, I'm not sure I can follow any. Y'all spitting good stuff. Good stuff.
Do you have a sort of big gig or break-in moment for the industry?
It's an interesting question because for the first time, I'm making like my entire living off of working in comics, but you're not going to see my name anywhere in books. And it's not, I don't do anything particularly creative at this point, like for the majority of it. I work as a flatter for a variety of colors, some of which you might know, Nick Filardi, who is known for Powers, and the most recent Gerard Way's comic.
Umbrella Academy?
That one.
Yeah.
Professional right here.
Again, working in the comics industry for a living. Yeah.
Yep. But
dude, I don't know how to flat, right? So
flatters are legitimately the unsung hero.
Never ever, because you know who else? You know who's? It's the flatter and the letterer. And I do know how to letter, and what takes the average letterer like an hour to do will take me like 3 days to do. But
knowing how to letter and being good at lettering are not the same thing.
Exactly. But flatting, I have a colorist working on something for me right now, and he's like, "Oh, my flatter quit," and I'm like, "Well, I'll flat it for you if I knew how." So
I would if I could.
Yeah, don't.
Very conveniently, you got two of them in this chat right now. Joel, you want to fight over work?
Sure, let's do it.
That'll be our next stream.
Yes,
you both get it. You both get in an inflatable tub and a kiddie pool and just box it out.
David doesn't fight anymore. Now he just makes people fight.
Yes.
That's where the money is.
Wrap it out.
Well, we are running near the end of our time. I think we've got time for 2 more questions. I think I want to do some fun ones. So I am looking at, is there a character or property that you would love to work with? Something you'd love to get your hands on. or some great big new character that you can't wait to get out there. I guess if you don't want to discuss new characters, that makes sense. But yeah, any property or character or world that you would love to really get involved in, and we'll go back around the other way. Joel, you want to get us started?
I mean, part of it, I already kind of got to do that.
Yeah.
Because one of the other colorists I work for is Trina Farrell, and she was taking over the newest couple issues on newest Runaways. So I got
wow!
to do work
That's
on
awesome.
This is one of your
stuff.
first books. That's amazing.
Yeah, like Runaways is really cool. But eventually, like one of these days, is like to work on my own characters and tell my own stories.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
being able
absolutely.
to tell a story that might make someone's day a little bit brighter is pretty much the entire reason I want to do this. So like working on my own characters and my own stories is really one day the goal.
Is there anything you've got in the works now that you'd like to plug or talk about at all?
Yeah, I got a list about it's stuff that I work on, but it's going to be other people's names on it. But
Who's going to be your work?
You'll be able to see my flatting work.
There you go.
All the colors are perfectly within the lines. I would pass kindergarten with flying colors. At 32. One of the books I got to work on for colors Trina Farrell is Blackbird.
We have that
Humphries.
upstairs.
Art by Jen Bartel, another fantastic artist.
Yeah.
Let's see. One that I just finished up flatting on is I Walk with Monsters from Vault.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
We also have that upstairs.
Yep. Derville Kelly is the colorist I work for there, and Sally Cantorino is the artist. And I wrote down the name of the writer.
The writer.
Cornell's the writer. It's a great
cares?
little story, urban horror, and it's beautiful. Let's see. Justice League Infinity is a new book coming out from DC, and I'm doing that for Nick. It's going to be it looks like a really fun book, and it's an all ages thing.
Nice.
And a book I'm excited about coming out is new Harley Quinn the animated series.
Yes.
Which is colored by someone that I work for on a decent basis, but haven't touched this one. It just looks fun, and it's going to make Harley Ivy fans really, really happy.
Oh, very
already.
nice. That's good news.
But it looks adorable and super fun. So, yeah.
Awesome.
You
Very
know,
cool. Yeah.
Represent the people that I like and work for.
Yeah. Kenny, how about you?
Yeah, I guess from a character who already exists, I'd love to work on. The first one on my bucket list was Green Lantern, but I got to do that recently, so that's already
got a yellow lantern
very
tattoo
nice.
right here.
Very
I'm a
cool.
huge Lantern fan myself.
So yeah, I loved working on Green Lantern. Another one I'd love to do is I'd love to do a very like comedic heist take on Hobgoblin, like every arc being a different, really stupid heist he wants to pull.
Hokey and cheesy, yeah.
So yeah, I'd made a joke about doing a like Hobgoblin running for president thing, and my buddy Dave Acosta drew me a sketch of it, which was really funny, which I'll send to you sometime. But yeah, I'd love to do that. And on a creator-owned end, Zach Wilcox and I, who we worked together on Fearless for Scholastic, like we just came up with a new pitch for a thing that we're really excited about that we sent in. So fingers crossed.
Oh, very cool.
That is very personal to both of us, of like growing up and having like feeling very responsible for our family members who weren't doing so hot and everything. So while we put like kind of a more fantastical twist on it, like that's something I'm really excited about and to get out there. And if you look at his Instagram and stuff, Zach Wilcox, first of all, he's super talented. Everyone should follow him. He's got some kind of preview images of the artwork and stuff we've been working on. So we're going to put that out one way or another, whether anybody picks it out. So we're really excited for that. And then some recent stuff I've had come out that people can pick up since Joel's talking about that. Like I mentioned, Fearless by Zach and I from Scholastic. That's out right now.
Also, I think available upstairs at Vault.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Yeah. Hey, if we haven't already, everybody should go to Vault of Midnight because they're sponsoring this and buy all our books.
We've also got Vault of Midnight. Oh, it's a small operation. You probably wouldn't have heard of them.
But yeah, that. And then they just announced, we're talking about Baldemar Rivas and I got to revamp Batman 1 Million and do a new take on that. So I was always a big fan of like the cool 1 million, like crazy, super far future stuff. So we're super excited about that because they kind of like let us go off the chain and do a bunch of crazy stuff with that. So that's
cool.
the newest thing I'll have out soon. And then also kind of like right back to back with that, the re-release of Barnstormers. So
Nice.
busy couple of months. Yep.
Yeah, very nice. Exciting.
I'll second Barnstormers too. I flattered part of that book.
Hey, look at that.
See, flatters are everywhere.
We're like cockroaches. You can't get rid of us.
We're necessary.
Aaron, how about you?
As far as like existing characters that go and franchises, if you will, I personally was extremely offended when Kevin Smith did not reach out to me to help him work on the new He-Man show, even though I don't know anything about animation. That is my dream. One day.
Oh, man.
What was the second part of it? It was things you want to do.
Yeah, things you would want to do on a creator-owned side. If you have any personal projects that you are trying to get off the ground or you'd like to plug or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal project that's kind of in the works that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Okay.
That,
David
I am
knows all
really,
about
really
that.
looking forward to. So look out for some kind of announcement, hopefully in a year. Not that anyone is
Okay.
going to remember this at that point.
Well, you'll be here for
Yeah.
the second annual VomCon, celebrating 26 years.
What is this magical way to hijack my announcement?
No, I just mean you all show great. We're obviously going to do another one of these next year.
Oh, of course. But yeah, so that is something that I want to do. I also have been wanting to, over the last couple of years, something that I've been really wanting to do, but haven't found the right avenue or the right time for it, is I really do want to do something a little bit more autobiographical. I find it really important to discuss issues that people go through that you might not be aware of, or that maybe isn't always on your radar. And talking about the trans community is something that is incredibly important to me. People don't really talk about the issues that trans people go through when they are transitioning, and even more so trans men. To be honest, it's been really, really difficult for me to find my own voice in that community.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring to light some of the issues that I have faced, some of the issues that I've faced in my community, in my personal relations, in my professional relationships. And so I have come out with a couple of mini comics that I've brought to shows with me, as well as put on my social media of issues that I've struggled with. The most recent one was kind of about talking about struggling with wanting to get surgery and not necessarily finding acceptance in that.
Okay.
But one of these days, I'm hoping for something a bit bigger than a mini comic.
I think you've got a very unique perspective and a great voice to tell it with. So I'm personally, I'll mirror what Kenny said earlier. Are you taking pre-orders yet? Because put me down.
There's no.
Do you want to give me the money to publish it? Because then yes.
Yeah, sure. It'll be a really elaborate pre-order, but I'm
Awesome.
into it.
Very good.
Very involved.
I see no flaws with this plan.
David, how about you?
Well, I'm going to publish Aaron's project. That's what I'm going to do.
There you
in the
go.
future.
There you go.
First and best error.
In terms of other characters, I'll be 100% honest. I just got offered a gig a week or so ago by a publisher, and I'll probably end up, writing and establish character work for hire. But there's nobody left that I want to write in that, because I understand the politics of working for a Marvel or a DC.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter that I have a great Hulk story, which I do.
Okay.
I don't think it's as great as what Al Ewing's been doing, but I also know the politics at Marvel. So it's why put my dreams into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what Aaron's talking about, that autobiographical comic concept, I really am working on this. It's pretty epic. And it's I've created this entire universe, and this universe is based on my life and the people that I know and the things that I've experienced, but it's also going into the realm of the fantastic. And as as I'm doing it, I'm writing initially as short stories that I'm putting out, getting ready to start putting out as mini comics that will be, as hopefully, fingers crossed, as convention season starts. And that's what I feel really passionately about. And part of the reason I want to do that is because as a teacher, I believe that people should be empowered to tell their stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that that it's, if I sit here and say, you should tell your story, and if I'm not willing to tell mine, and people will say, well, I don't have anything interesting to say, which is not true. It just means you haven't figured out an interesting way to tell that story. Because I can make an interesting story out of the walk I went for a cup of coffee this morning if I want to. It's just a question of finding the right words. So part of where I want to go with my career in moving forward is helping, especially younger creators and creators who may come from, say, marginalized communities. Help them figure out how to navigate these waters and make what they want to do, because I don't want to see the comic industry. It has to change, right? I love this medium so much, but it looks a little bit too much like it looked when I was a kid. And I was a kid way before any of you were kids, right? So, and I just think that there's so many great opportunities and there's so many stories to be told, and between print and digital, there's just no excuse to not challenge yourself, but not also to look around and go, okay, who can I help? How can I, spread the word? When Aaron decides to do a Kickstarter or whatever, how can I help to publicize that and make it happen? So it's, I can't remember who said community earlier, but like community is huge. This industry is, Kenny, this industry is more, I think a lot of people don't get how community, there's your immediate community, and then there'll be the larger community that you'll start to become part of. And if, I don't care how antisocial you are, I don't care if you've got, agoraphobia or any of those things, like you've got to work with that, because the people that are going to support you are out there. They're probably just as antisocial and have just the same hangups as you do. And you'll find ways. And I say that as the old person on this crew. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the community that I found. And it happens organically, but and now I'm happy because there's people that are way younger than me that again are in some cases young enough to be my kid, but they're still part of that community because they have that passion for storytelling and that passion for this particular medium. So
very well put. And Steve, unfortunately, you've got to follow that up. That eloquent, well-spoken.
Let's wrap it up, I guess.
Also, Steve, I'm being told to ask you about my friend Alfredo.
Oh,
in the comments over here.
Yeah. So, in addition to writing the Adventures of Momo, I do also have a small web comic that I was doing and need to pick back up. This is probably my friend egging me again to pick it back up. So, it's just an Instagram web comic that I've been ticking away at that I'd love to keep working on. So I guess as far as dream projects or dream things that I would work on, I mean, I guess might be a little bit of a cop out, but I think I'm doing that right now. Like, making, like I said, I don't have a big extensive history in comics. I have more of a history in writing and storytelling for other mediums, mainly film. And so when my brother and I started working on the Adventures of Momo, I was like, man, this is like everything that we've always wanted to do. We used to like make up stories together and stuff, and we grew up with like all the classic JRPGs, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and Secret of Mana, all that good stuff. And my childhood was very much fueled by nice cartoons and anime, so I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that I love. And then getting into manga, really, so Adventures of Momo is kind of my dream project that I've been working on right now. I'd love to get it, obviously creator-owned stuff is awesome. The self-publishing part of it, I'd love to get that part into someone else's hands. I'd love to work with somebody who, a company that is really great with creator-owned projects like Image or Dark Horse, Oni Press, Boom, things like that. There's a lot, now in today's era, there's a lot more companies out there than there ever has been that are like, we love that you own this. We just want to make some money on it. So I'd love to get Momo into some of those, those hands. But if I had to say, I guess a dream collaborator, man, if there was a piece out there that Akira Toriyama did of like, even just a poster that he did of like Momo, of the Adventures of Momo, if that existed and that was a variant cover of one of the issues, it'd be like, well, that's it. I made it. I'm done. I'm going to hang this up and I'm just going to sit in the room until I rot,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I guess to round it out, upcoming projects that we're working on, we're working on Adventures of Momo issue 3. We have 1, 2 out now that you can pick up at Vault of Midnight. And also you can pick it up from us direct on our Instagram if you want to do that, or if you're international or anything, you can order it from us. We ship out internationally. So keep an eye out. We got issue 3 coming out later this year.
Sort of on that a similar note, David, earlier today we had Curtis and Steve, the 2 owners and founders of Vault, doing a panel with Michael Jewett, and in the midst of it, they started talking about Bitter Root, talking about some of their all-time favorite books, and it got brought up that there was, if I'm not mistaken, an Akira variant cover for a Bitter Root issue.
Yeah, there was. I want to say, like issue 1, maybe.
Yeah, Michael Jewett was talking about how he had every single variant, every issue ever of Bitter Root, and it's one of his all-time favorite stories. And Steve was like, "Oh yeah, do you have the Akira one?" And the panel came to a screeching halt, and he went, "I'm sorry, what? The what? We have to stop right now and find that thing." So it was really fun, and I was like, "Oh, funny enough, we've got David Walker on later today." So if you've got one kicking around, I know who would really appreciate one.
If I had one kicking around, I'd probably be able to pay off my car note by selling it. That one's like, people went nuts over it. It's in the trade collection, so we have it in there.
Okay.
And same with the Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro.
Wow!
Tribute
I did not know there was
cover.
one for that. Wow.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird ones, and Sanford isn't necessarily the best communicator, so he's in charge of all the covers, and then they'll drop, and I'll be like, "Whoa, wait, what's going on here?"
That was cool.
How do I get? I've literally had to fight to get copies of some of
your
our own
own
titles. Yeah.
Well, at least it doesn't change. We all have to fight each other for those variant issues, no matter where you're at in the industry.
Yeah, what they don't tell you is that there is a pit in New York City that cartoonists go to fight at, whether that is over like our own books or getting work. There's a big convention every year. That's New York Comic Con. It's just a cover up.
Yes, it
it's
really
just
is.
The noise of the fighting and the screaming.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think that's going to just about do it for us. If anyone has anything else they'd like to plug or mention or chat about, otherwise, thank you guys all so much for spending your time with us, for volunteering your expertise, your knowledge, and your life with us. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself as a just sort of outsider to the world and comics enjoyer. So thank you guys all. This has been a blast, very informative, very inspirational, and I think very friendship forming. I don't think any of us is leaving the same way we came in today. See, Joel's got it.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all so much.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'll just slip this in right now. We are working on like a series of digital interviews for creators one-on-one for our Instagram. More than overjoyed to have any one of you on that in the future. So I'm just going to keep your names on a short list, and I'll just be spamming your inboxes for more enjoyable content.
Spam away.
Perfect.
Yeah, spam away.
Great. Well, thank you guys all. For everybody else watching, VomCon is not done yet. The next hour is going to be a draw along over on the Discord server, which Aaron so helpfully plugged in our comment section over here. Head over to the Discord to just hang out and chat with other con goers. Participate in our draw along. You can stream your own artwork as you're making it if you like. But it's just a cool place to hang out. And then at 5 o'clock, we are starting the final event of the day, which is a Vault of Knowledge digital trivia game that is happening on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And we'll just be covering the last 25 years of nerddom. Anything nerdy that happened since we opened our doors is fair game for this. It's going to be really fun, totally free to play. Answers are just in the comments, super relaxed. Otherwise, we'll see you on Discord. We'll see you on Trivia. Thank you for coming to the con, and thank you all for 25 years of support. You're all the greatest. And Joel, Kenny, Aaron, David, Steve, thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time and your expertise. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.